No, I'm good.
Leave on vacation.
Make sure to turn.
There might be.
We'll call the meeting to order. Call the roll. Oh, sorry.
Trustee Fenton?
Here.
Trustee Dodge? Trustee Guerra?
Here.
Trustee Ruzick? Here. Trustee Calandrello?
Here.
Trustee Carroll?
Here.
Mayor Pico?
Here.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please stay standing for just a minute. Yet again, another attack in London. So for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Approval of June 5th regular meeting minutes.
Mr.
Are
Chairman?
there any changes to the meeting minutes? I do have one change on page 41. I believe that Trustee Calandrello voted present, not abstained.
So Ken can chime in here. Present is not a motion that our Legistar software recognizes. So we don't abstain. It's the same.
To override it if the board wants his vote and trustee Calandrello wants his vote registered as present as opposed to abstain, then we'll just have to override the Legistar system.
Okay.
That is how he voted, although it, in terms of a legal significance, there is no difference between voting present or
It's the
abstaining.
same thing.
Right.
I don't know.
I would want that to be a present vote, so, I guess I asked us to make an amendment with the mayor too.
Speaker.
Yeah, I mean, if, I would prefer it to be the present vote like I did it, so if we could just amend the minutes to that, that'd be great. I guess with that, I can make the motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Do we need a motion at this point? It's just a mechanic thing for our office, I
Just
think.
motion to amend the draft minutes to
Okay.
reflect the vote of present, and then the vote would be on the amended minutes.
So I'll do both of those. So at this time, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to amend the minutes to reflect that my vote was present. And also, like, in the same motion, I move to approve the minutes with the amendment to the Board of Trustees meeting of June 5th, 2017.
Second.
The motion is moved and seconded. Call the roll.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye. I will entertain a motion for the St. Francis of Assisi Church.
Mr.
raffle
Chairman?
license. Trustee Carroll.
I move to approve issuing a raffle license at St. Francis of Assisi Church to sell raffle tickets from June 26th, 2017 through November 4th, 2017 at their church located at 15050 South Wolf Road, Orland Park.
Second.
The motion is moved and seconded as read. Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Consent agenda?
The consent agenda is as follows. Item A, payroll for June 2nd, 2017, approval. Accounts payable for June, item B, accounts payable for June 6th, 2017 to June 19th, 2017, approval.
Excuse me. I skipped something here. Orland Grasslands update. Sorry about that.
That's okay. If we could have the Orland Grasslands update.
Hi. For those of you who know me, I'm Pat Hayes. I'm glad to be here for those of you who don't. I'm glad to make your acquaintance, and thank you very much for this opportunity to just give you a little bit of update of what's happening in Orland Grassland. Just as a little bit of background, I'll tell you that we now have an e-newsletter that goes out to over 800 people. This represents all the people who have visited us in the last 15 years. It's 15 years now this year that the Orland Grassland Volunteers have come together, as well as the big restoration activity that's been going at the site. We have very many monitors, bird monitors, frog monitors, butterfly monitors, dragonfly monitors, and the habitat rescue team that function out there as volunteers. The volunteers come from our community. They're very dedicated. They're very passionate. I want to say I've probably got 35 people on our list of dedicated volunteers. We also have made some strides in partnerships with Carl Sandburg and Andrew High Schools. Two teachers came together, got a grant. They are working with the Orland Grassland Volunteers to use it as a field of study year after year after year. It's turning into quite a great and remarkable activity for these students and the teachers and the volunteers as well. We've also partnered with Moraine Valley Community College, and we are taking on interns that work with the Orland Grassland Volunteers. This is a non-paid intern, but they certainly get experience. The teamwork and the learning opportunities and the projects and the joy of nature that they encountered. A lot of times they're staying on after their internships are over. Also, the professors there are coming out regularly, maybe three times during the course of their semesters to bring their students on interpretive walks. And I've been told from the students themselves they learn more in that hour and a half than they have in the semester from their test book. So Orland Grassland is a huge asset to our community, as well as to the, as well as the volunteers that are part of the community as well. I've got some good news about this site. We are a land and water reserve under the state of Illinois. That's the second highest level of protection. Comes under the nature preserve status. The Forest Preserve District of Cook County, under their Next Century Plan, their 100th anniversary, has committed to bringing 30,000 acres up to that top designation for the state of Illinois, and that commitment has been extended to Orland Grassland. So we are looking forward to having a status of nature preserve in the coming years. Another thing that has occurred is we have become an important bird area. That's with a capital I and a capital B and a capital A. That is actually a designation from National Audubon, and we are part of the BirdLife International. This designation came from the technical committee that Great Lakes Audubon and members from the state of Illinois have quite an extensive set of criteria. We met that criteria. I want to congratulate the Orland Grassland Volunteers because they are the one who moved this ball forward. They collected data, days and days and years of actually on-the-ground data of, for all of the grassland and migrating birds there. Mike McNamee is most recently, in the last couple of years, a remarkable birder. He actually comes down from Hyde Park every day in order to do this for us. Marnie Baker crunched all the data, and once we got it all together, we were able to submit it, and that is what brought it forward. So now we have this important bird area designation. What does this do for us? It gives us another level of protection. It allows us to join an international effort that is recognized around the world for protecting bird species that are endangered and finding these precious spots where they're finding their habitat. The other thing, though, is besides being this important bird area, this brings people in from not just Orland Park and not just our surrounding communities. We've got people who volunteer from Brookfield and Worth and Tinley and, all places nearby. But these birds bring people in from throughout the state of Illinois. They come up from Champaign, they come up from other states. So we are getting a lot of visitors into our community as a result of what's happening out at Orland Grassland. So, we are becoming a high-profile place, for conservation, restoration, and birds. We're also becoming a high-profile place for education for our community and our students, and for the people who live here. So that's the good news story I wanted to bring to your attention. The other thing I wanted to do is ask you a favor. I-80 is being developed as a corridor. That's grand, that's wonderful, and it is adjacent to the south end of Orland Grassland South. We would respectfully ask for you to consider when this development starts, and I think it's probably in the very early stages, and you're just beginning to put things together, so now's the time to maybe get this seed planted. We need to ask for a bird-friendly glass. You've probably heard about this in the city of Chicago a lot, but very many surrounding communities do this as well. When you're talking about multi-story structures, even the nature centers and the Forest Preserve District have issues. They needed to switch over to bird-friendly glass because, the birds, they crash in, they die, and these are very important birds. You're right on the edge there of Orland Grassland South. The other thing would be low-impact lighting for that area, so that the lighting is directed down and not up into the sky, because that, again, will disrupt any kind of bird navigation and just cause havoc on birds. The last thing I would like for you to consider is we're out there all the time in the field. We're fighting these invasives that probably you are all aware of, Phragmites, teasel. Orland Park is no stranger to these awful beasts. But this year we had an explosion of calorie pear, probably most commonly known as Bradford pear, the darling of the landscapers. Orland is really relatively a newer community with lots of new landscaping done. It is so highly invasive that it is being watched. The Morton Arboretum is not recommending this tree, and the invasive nature of it is such that it is being watched to be considered an actual invasive plant. I know it's everywhere in Orland. It's a beautiful tree. It's the first one that flowers in the spring. A lot of places have lined their lanes. I'm hoping, I can't tell because I can't slow down enough to see along LaGrange Road what was planted in that median. It looks beautiful, but I can't tell really what kind of trees those are. Thank you. If in the scope of what you do, if in any kind of influence that you might have, I'm asking that perhaps, especially around the proximity of Orland Grassland, but really throughout your community, because I've seen your open lands already have become invaded with this tree as you drive through. So that's going to be an experience you're going to have.
And Pat, if I could ask.
Yeah.
You said Bradford pear. Does that extend to other varieties of pear trees or just the Bradford?
Actually, Bradford is a kind of cultivar, and this actually started out in Asia and I think Vietnam and such as that. Calorie pear is what it's called, and now they've, hybrided this, that, and other. They were trying to, initially it had very soft branches, so they tried to do something with that, and so there are different varieties of this, but it all is very, if it comes under the category, the species of calorie pear, get rid of it, kill it, don't have it. It's going to wreak havoc in your natural areas quickly. So with that, thank you very much for letting me be here today, and I want to invite you all to come out one of these days. I'm happy to always share Orland Grassland with anybody and everybody who wants to come out and see and experience it. I would suggest that, as wonderful as the bike trail is for a lot of people, I know it's very popular. There used to be only cars of volunteers in that parking lot, and now sometimes we run out of spaces in the parking lot for the volunteers when we go there, so it's very popular. But that trail is no way to really experience the wilderness and the prairie. Get in there on those footpaths, and I'm happy to take you anytime you'd like to be out. So thank you very much for having me here today.
Mr. Chairman, if I could inquire?
Yes.
What would the extra level of protection to natural or resource or whatever the qualification was, what would that do for the grasslands, or what does that entitle you to?
Every time you add a level of protection, you are adding another layer of restriction. So a forest preserve site without any additional protection is really at the whim of the district to perhaps direct it for something else. And we're ever so always nervous that we are looking for wilderness, we are looking for genuine nature, but there is this propensity for recreation. And while parks are an important part of any community, we don't want to see our natural lands turn into parklands. But without protections, it's at the whim. As you add these layers of protection on, now it is less likely, and you have stronger voices at the state level who are not going to let those sorts of things happen. And now that we're an IBA, an important bird area, we've got national attention, we've got international attention, that this is a place where there is habitat for birds, migratory birds and grassland birds that are very uncommon, they're rare, their populations are declining like crazy, but they found a place here. And so it's a wonderful thing.
Another question for
Yeah.
Pat. Actually, more of a congratulations. You know, you mentioned that Grasslands is now a classroom for District 230.
Absolutely.
And even Marine Valley. We are also very proud that Lake Sedgwick is a classroom for the Bass Fishing Club from District 230 as well. So I think it speaks to the village, too, that we value nature and the outdoors and are able to provide it and support your effort for sure and everything that you've accomplished out there. It's just wonderful.
It's wonderful, and it's wonderful that we have this partnering and this, you know, mutual support of each other. I know I did a presentation at Sandburg, and they gave me the bass, you know, hat, the cap, that, you know, as a thank you, yeah. So, great. It is just great opportunities that we have where our students, our young adults, are just learning an appreciation of nature in a genuine way that they can carry with them throughout their lifetime. It doesn't necessarily have to be a team effort, and they don't have to say that this is their life's career, but it is going to be a friend to them throughout their lifetime, and they are going to take this knowledge with them and be able to apply it in many, many places wherever they roam.
Now, are your volunteers still collecting seeds out there?
We collect seeds, yes, out there.
I think if you could explain why you do the seed collection and then the separation, I think
Oh,
people
sure.
don't realize what you're doing.
Right. Well, you know, we have around the year seasonal activities. Right now, we are on the invasive charge. We're going after birds for trefoil. We're going to turn to white sweet clover. We're going to turn to teasel. We're going to do all that during the summer and the growing season. Then, after that, we start collecting the native seeds that are coming up out there. And then, which is not, once you collect them, you don't necessarily put them right in the ground. You have to take them out of their shells. Sometimes you have to scarify them. We have to scratch them up with sandpaper. We have found that some seeds will not germinate unless they go through the tracks of animals. All right? So what goes in comes out something that's very viable to plant. So we try to be that missing link sometimes. So we go through and we clean all these seeds. We divide the seeds up into different kinds of areas where they'll have to go: mesic, dry mesic, upland, wetland, savanna, all these different places that are out there. You may not think it if you drive by. Orland looks like a big flat piece. It contains so many different ecosystems within it. It is actually very, very complex. And so we sort these seeds out, and then we get big lines of people who volunteer. Some, this is their favorite activity to do. And we actually hand shake them out into the most appropriate areas and start expanding our areas that are remnant areas now. Are there any other questions?
Are there any other questions?
When can I come? No.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you
I
very
appreciate
much.
the
And
update. I
welcome
lived
to you,
across the
Mayor.
street in Mission Hill, so
Oh,
before
there
it was
you go.
done, and so I appreciate what you do out there.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Consent agenda?
The consent agenda, item A, payroll for June 2nd, 2017, approval. Item B, accounts payable for June 6, 2017 to June 19, 2017, approval. Item C, Cisco network devices and Sentinel hands maintenance approval from July 17th, 2017 to July 16th, 2018. Item D, Tyler Technologies Development Services / Asset and Work Order Management Enterprise Software Partner. Item E, Technology Fiber Partnership with School District 135 and School District 230 to improve VOP network reach to owned assets, award to G4S. Item F, Annual Treasurer's Report as required by Illinois statute, acknowledgement. Item G, maintenance and upgrade of Harlem Avenue streetlights from 151st Street to 159th Street, including underground wiring and controller replacement and the addition of holiday lighting circuits proposal. Item H, third-party testing of 3/4 inch and 1 inch water meters to verify reading accuracies for years 2017, 18, 19. Request for proposal award. Item I, one international truck chassis model 7500 SBA 6x4 purchase. Item J, additional funding for 2017 Neighborhood Road Improvement Program for the maintenance and reconstruction of various roadways and streets. Item K, lower level Village Hall renovation for relocation of Business Information Systems Department proposals. Item L, contracted streetlight repairs, underground line faults, vehicle knockdowns, overhead line conflicts payment. And I just lost. Item M, Shot Creek Specialized Concrete Flat Work and Curb and Gutter Repair Program, 2017 to 2019 award. Item N, purchase of handholds for fiber conduit installations between Centennial Pool and Orland Park Health and Fitness and Franklin Labey Center and Parks Administration Buildings proposal. Item O, disposal of village equipment through an online auction. Item salvage from the cafe previously located on the Orland Park Health and Fitness Center. Vehicle and equipment maintenance, repairs, parts, recreation props for youth program and sportsplex exercise mats. Ordinance. Item P, drainage improvement, ditch cleaning and shaping of 2 locations, Brown Park and Villa Creek West, excavation contractor proposals. Item Q, emergency replacement of AC compressor for Sportsplex soccer field HVAC unit purchase. Item R, ordinance granting a special use permit, Teas and Things, Sip and Go Cafe, 9911 West 143rd Place. Are there anybody that wishes to take any items off the consent agenda? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick.
I would move to approve items A through R of the consent agenda.
Second.
With the consent agenda being moved and seconded, move for a vote. Call the roll.
Trustee Rizek.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
14415 Beacon Avenue.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to approve the proposed Orland Park History Museum sign proposed by Bob Burns as proposed in Exhibit 1.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, the motion as read will be put to a vote. Roll call.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Rizek.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Economic Development Advisory Board.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick.
I'd move to approve directing the village attorney to draft an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the Village Code to include the proposed changes to the Economic Development Advisory Board as outlined in the attached document.
Is there a second?
Second, then I have some questions.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Trustee Guerra.
Well, there's a few items in this. I think this was the first time the board saw it was over the weekend. And there's a few changes I'd like to discuss. Or I don't know if it would be better for all the trustees to submit their own proposed changes. There's a couple things that adopt and amend, well, I could go through, there's 3 or 4 that I would suggest we have further discussion on before approving this.
Anyone else?
Joe, when did we send out the update on this? I believe it was sometime in the middle of last week.
Yeah,
Hello?
I believe that I gave you Mr. Mayor, that my recommended changes, was it Wednesday, I think, of last week, I believe?
It was Tuesday or
last
Wednesday, and we
week.
send them right
Yeah,
out to
yeah, I think so.
everyone. So I'm not sure why you didn't get it until the weekend, but they were sent out in the middle of the week.
It still begs
So
the
what
fact
are
that
the-
I'd like to see discussion.
So which items do you have issues with?
We could start with individual, number 6. Individual members of the board may serve as representatives of the village at state, regional, local economic development forums, conferences, trade shows, and on. I would suggest that if we're going to send people out to represent the village, the board might want to advise on that.
Well, the board, I believe, has advice and consent on all of the members that are added to the board.
This isn't talking about appointments, this is talking about their own activities.
Okay, so how would you like that to read?
With the advice, when requested to do so, is approved by the mayor with the advice and consent of the Board of Trustees.
Okay,
That's number 6, and then again, I would...
so you're moving into amend number 6?
Right?
Mr. Mayor, before we get into Trustee Guerra's issue or points, if I'm understanding this right, we're just directing council to draft ordinance, so we're kind of, I feel like this
That's
might have been
correct.
premature to be going back and forth, and I'd be more than happy to have the discussion point by point. I just don't know, because we're going to have this discussion again when it comes back from when whoever council is going to provide this. I just don't know if when's the proper way of drafting the legislation, right now when it's premature or later. Whatever the board prefers, I don't know. I don't want us to duplicate and I think there's still drafting going on. That's just my thoughts, but I'd be happy if we want to hatch it out now, that's cool. I'm here.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Carroll?
Yeah, I would concur with Trustee Calandrillo. I think this is something that if we're directing council to draft it, that this is perfectly a good time for that. And if any trustee or yourself wanted to direct council to look at different changes, that's something we can discuss. But I agree with Trustee Calandrillo that this can be still accomplished with this motion passing and working that out between yourself and the trustees.
And for the record, I support what we're talking about, just more of a figuring out the right venue and procedure, I guess.
Understood.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's good to have this group, but I think for me, I want to have it a little more closely refined or defined. Adopt and amend bylaws. The group themselves would write their own bylaws. My problem with some of this is the board that is responsible for whatever takes place. So when people behind closed doors at the village doesn't necessarily know, make decisions on behalf of the village with our advice or consent, then I worry I don't want to be responsible for something I had no input to.
Trustee Ruzick?
I have a question. Probably should ask this when I got it in the email, but I wasn't clear. In 113.3, the board's duties and powers, are 1 through 10 all new? I'm not sure, because sometimes when we've made these changes, Carrie, we get like a red line version.
Right,
so
and that
show
still needs to come, right, so this
we're kinda-
is,
I don't know what the change was and what's new and what
right,
wasn't
so
there.
the procedure for changing the village code was, the mayor had requested us to bring this forward for conversation and discussion. with edits to the existing Chapter 13. The existing Chapter 13 already creates an economic
Right,
advisory
right.
board. Their primary role in the past has been, as relates primarily to the approval of loan applications through the revolving loan program that we've had for many, many years, since like 1999, I think, when it was adopted. So I don't want to speak on behalf of the mayor, he can speak for himself, but I think what the intent was to expand the role of the EDAB committee to be something more than just reviewing and making recommendations to the board, who ultimately has the final authority on those loans. As it relates to the revolving loan fund. So we're not getting rid of that program. And there, as you notice down at the bottom in parens, there's the need to rewrite the loan program. We can make it more succinct to make it flow better in the existing Chapter 13, which we can do with our attorney. So the next step, if the board is in agreement with the change in the focus and the mission of the EDAB committee that exists today, I think that's what the mayor's trying to get requests and feedback from, then what we will do is we'll take that information, we'll work with our attorneys, Mr. Fricker, and my staff, and you will get a red line version of the Chapter 13, what is there in there today, what is being removed, and what is being added. And that will come back to you at the next board meeting, which I believe is slated for in July probably, where with an ordinance to adopt those changes. So that still has to happen. That's the requirement, the process for changing the village code no matter what. So I think this was more of getting input from the entire board that you were in agreement with expanding the role of the EDAB committee and not making it just be focusing on the revolving loan fund, but having them be engaged in other economic development activities.
And so just to follow up, so items 1 through 9 would be the new ones, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Correct.
Actually, 1 through 16 are all new.
Everything's no except.
Oh, everything's new.
No, 10 and 11, there were a few
There's
that,
a few that aren't, but generally, the majority of these are new.
okay, got it.
Because again, remember, their focus was on approval and review of applications for funding through the existing revolving loan fund program that we have.
Okay, I got it.
so items 1 through 9 are new, and the others came from the previous, including the amending bylaws and regulations that you mentioned came from ordinance, actually.
Number 13 was already in the ordinance?
No, number 13 is new. I'm going off memory here, so you're going to have to bear with me. Number 14 is new. Number 15 is existing.
And number 16?
And number 16 is new.
New. That's right. So the point tonight then is for discussion, not for vote. Am I
Well, it's
correct?
general direction, and if you're in agreement with this, if you have specific changes to this, you can get those to me
And I do.
after you have your dialogue with the mayor, and that we can incorporate those together, and we will work with, my staff will work with our attorneys to get a red line version for you guys to see at the next board meeting along with an ordinance.
And this motion was to get them to draft the document.
Right.
And this document, actually, as written, was sent to everyone on Wednesday, and I think we received 3 responses back.
Okay, why? More responses for you?
Are there any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just,
Trustee Calendro?
and I know that one of your missions is to revise all the committees and the advisors. I would just say, since we're just the first one up, that we should tie it to a standing committee of the Board of Trustees. This way, it's a clean line of reporting. So I would say for this one, it would make sense for Economic Development Committee. This way, this advisory has a easy place to go with their findings. That's at least my preference. This way, there's a good, clear chain of command, so then everyone knows what to do, kind of thing, instead of just being, it's an advisory committee that advises, but who advises who and whatnot. I think at least that would be a preference I would like to see. And I think I expressed that to you already, Mr. Mayor, about looking into that.
You did, and it was actually passed on to Joe.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So to be clear, regarding the changes to the committees, I haven't said that I want to change all the committees. What I have said is that the committees need to be examined to see what needs to be changed, what needs to be updated. For example, the Economic Advisory Board is one that I feel strongly needs to be changed now and not wait for a group to look at. So my suggestion is to set up an independent committee to look over 6 months of a couple of trustees plus 5 members of the community to look at all of our committees and commissions and see which ones we still need, which ones we don't, and how we should change their charter. The Economic Development Committee, I've met with several members. They haven't met in 5 years. So it hasn't really been helping us much with economic development advisory. And its primary goal, as stated, was to review loan programs. And with the talent level that we have in our village, that is interested in seeing our village develop economically, I felt it was important to engage those people as soon as possible to help us develop economically. And that's the impetus for doing this first and doing this now. The rest of the committees and commissions, I think, should be looked at over a longer period of time, but I believe this is critical for Orland Park, critical moving forward. And we have several CEOs of large companies inside the village that have already expressed interest in partaking. They're not currently on the board. Any other questions or comments? So the motion has been moved and seconded. Put it to a vote. Call the roll.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll. Aye. Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Resolution supporting the increase in the Illinois minimum wage.
I can have the resolution number, please.
1713.
1713, thank you. I move to pass resolution number 1713 entitled Resolution Supporting an Increase in the Illinois Minimum Wage.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Any comments from the board?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calandrello.
I just bring up that we had a long discussion last meeting about this issue. It seemed like the whole board, and I won't speak for anyone, so speak up if I summarize everyone. Everyone thought that this was a possibly good idea, but it was the state's burden, for lack of a word, to do this. My vote, I'm supporting this, is what the voters did back in 2014, which is interesting because the outcome of the minimum wage increase was actually almost the exact total of Bruce Rounder's numbers in Orland Park and Orland Township. So while it was a quote-unquote conservative outcome, I guess if you want to say, for the governorship, the voters supported this to the same extent. So at least there's a couple other reasons, and I repeated those before, so I don't want to repeat myself. That's why head staff and we all work together. Thank you.
Any other comments? So I have a few comments on this. This is, the minimum wage issue is a very emotional one, and I think a lot of the arguments are emotional. What I want to do is bring some facts to the table and explain why I won't be supporting this resolution. One, proponents argue that raising the minimum wage is good for the economy and will drive economic growth. Currently, the target is between $12 and $15 an hour. The bill that was passed was for $12 an hour. If raising minimum wage drives economic growth, the question I have is why not 50? Why not 100? The fact is it inflates wages and slows growth and increases unemployment. This can be evidenced by the last time we had a big minimum wage increase from July 2007 to 09. Minimum wages increased by 40%. From 2007 to November 2010, unemployment increased from 4.6% to 9.8%. Was this driven solely by the minimum wage? No, but it was an exacerbating factor. During this time, food stamps, welfare, and disability recipients almost doubled and reached all-time highs. Raising the minimum wage did nothing for poverty and did nothing to keep people employed, and it's not going to do that now. During this time, since these increases, our labor force participation rate has dropped from 66% in 07 to 62% today, 62.7% today. If we had the labor participation rate of 2007, we would have $9 million more jobs out there. Another argument that's popular is that it's unfair to expect workers to raise a family on minimum wage. Here are the facts of minimum wage workers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 2.15 million people are making minimum wage or below. That includes people who are tipped. That's 1.4% of all workers. Of these, 54% are under 24. And that's not surprising. Young people often start at minimum wage or because they're inexperienced. 65% of all minimum wage workers have never married, and 59% of all minimum wage workers are employed less than 35 hours per week, which is the new definition of part-time. I would suggest that the majority of the people are under 24 and working less than full-time, are not supporting a family. A single full-time worker in Illinois making minimum wage makes 42% above the poverty level. Where minimum wage has its biggest increase is on food service, landscaping, and personal care businesses, which is about 67% of all minimum wage workers. Food service alone comprises 50% of all minimum wage workers. What happens to a company when wages are increased is they're going to, so a $2.75 an hour increase will make rates go up 3.75 per hour. That's 10% of a labor rate. When that happens, people who buy those goods buy 10% less. They get 10% less goods for what they pay for. And that ends up hurting people because we lose jobs. Let's bring it home. Raising the minimum wage will negatively impact Illinois. Every bordering state has a minimum wage lower than Illinois' and lower unemployment. Raising the minimum wage will cause more competitive imbalance and further damage our economy. Here in Orland Park, raising the minimum wage will have a significant impact to our village budget. If the minimum wage raises to $12 an hour, the village costs will increase by $200,000 in 2020 due to increased costs to our part-time summer employees. These costs either have to be passed on to residents or we will need to hire fewer people. And based on the average wages, that's approximately 44 less people being hired. These are high school kids and college kids that we hire for summer employees. That leaves us with fewer employees to provide services. This is an emotional issue, I get it, and I feel in this position I owe it to the residents to look at the facts, and the facts indicate that raising the minimum wage will damage the economy, it'll slow the growth, and the availability of jobs will increase. The availability of jobs will decrease, and it will definitely impact negatively our village budget. So for that reason, I can't support this.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
I'd just like to point out, I didn't comment earlier because my position on the county ordinance was made clear at the last board meeting, but I have to comment on the fact that during your statement there, you referenced the fact. The fact is that raising the minimum wage would cause X, Y, and Z. The facts, as I've seen them in every region that has raised minimum wages, are completely opposite of everything you just cited. So I could see that's your opinion, that's what would happen, and there is a segment of the population politically that feels that that is what would happen. But the facts that I've seen show exactly the opposite. And it's for that reason that I support the resolution.
Any other comments?
Can I make one minor comment on the resolution that you have before you?
Sure.
There's a reference to Senate Bill 2 that morphed into what is now before the governor, which is Senate Bill 81. So if you want to just make that correction typographically.
Pardon? I've got Senate Bill 81 here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's been updated for Senate Bill 81. Any other comments? The motion has been moved and seconded. Put the motion to a vote. Call the roll.
Trustee Calandrella.
Aye.
Trustee Fenn.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Nay.
Resolution regarding Cook County's paid sick leave ordinance,
Can I have resolution number, please?
1714.
Thank you. I move to pass resolution number 1714 entitled Resolution Supporting Paid Sick Leave for Illinois Employees.
Second.
The motion had been moved and seconded. Any
Mr. Chairman?
comments? Trustee Calangelo.
Again, this is something that I told the residents that I would bring up again. I know I'm not going to repeat myself with the issues I talked about this. I did support it, not opting out. In 2014, this is what the voters were telling us. And last time I checked, anytime voters tell you what to do, you do it as an elected official. In 2016, 72% of Orland Park residents supported this paid sick leave. And I linked it to the last discussion, Donald Trump won Orland Park, barely, but he won it. Mark Kirk won Orland Park by the 50-51. So the residents almost voted twice, or 22% more for this than Donald Trump, than Dan Kirk. And so again, we had a conservative outcome, people can argue, and the great majority of voters voted for this less than a year ago. So with that, I'm with the residents, and that's why I'm going to support this.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Trustee Garrett.
I'd just like to make one correction to Danny's statement. 72% of the voters who participated in the last election voted for this. Not all the vote. Unfortunately, we don't have a good turnout that comes out at elections. That's the only point I'm making. So 70%, 72% of those who voted.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would just comment that my figure showed it was 74.6%, but I'm not going to quibble over 2.5%.
Why not?
Any other comments? So my position on this was made clear during the last board meeting, but I don't think it's government's position to be implementing sick leave. The next thing will be vacation policy, et cetera. So I just think it's government overreach. The motion has been moved and seconded. We'll put the motion to a vote as read.
Trustee Calangelo.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Garrett.
This is tough for me. Nay.
Trustee Ruzick.
Nay.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Nay.
It's 3-3.
The resolution did not pass.
So the vote is 3-3 and the resolution fails. Are there any visitors that would like to speak?
Bob Ryder, resident, Orland Park, Secretary Treasurer, Chicago Federation of Labor, someone who's worked on both minimum wage and earned sick leave. I spoke at the last meeting. Trustees indicated to me that they would be in favor of passing resolution supporting both minimum wage and earned sick leave. Obviously, I wanted to have the village not opt out of the county ordinances, but I do appreciate passing the resolution supporting minimum wage. I don't want to, rehash all the arguments from last time, but I would also like to say that I've looked at the data. I have actually some of it right here in front of me. These iPhones are amazing devices, or computers that you can take with you anywhere. Specifically, on the minimum wage, the bulk of research examining hundreds of case studies of minimum wage increases at the state and local levels finds that raising the minimum wage boosts incomes for low-paid workers without reducing overall employment or job growth to any significant degree. And what it does more often than not is it helps lift the floor for people who otherwise find themselves economically disadvantaged by where they enter into society and a socioeconomic status level. The resolution passed, so I'm not going to belabor this issue. I will say that I am disappointed that the resolution on earned sick leave did not pass, simply because the economic impact on this has been shown to be less than 1% of payroll when you look at what it does to a business. And a lot of businesses have some level of leave provided for. All this ordinance specifically does is make sure that the leave that they have is available and that people can actually take it without abusing it, right? And it sets the standard. It's actually something, interestingly enough, that our president has suggested needs to happen. So I just find it, again, because it was supported 74.6% by those who voted for it. And that was, the last election was a very high turnout election for someone who works in elections. And considering that this is a middle income community that I think represents the heart of the country, I would have expected that when you look at this specifically earned sick leave, that for me, I would have thought that that would have been the slam dunk if you were to pick between the two. But I guess it's an issue for another day, so I just thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Is there any comments from the board?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Guerra?
My comment is that today I would rather see, well, it's not our business to tell someone how to run their business. I'm not clear on, this appears that it would cover part-time employees who, even seasonal employees, after they work so many hours. And if you're putting a burden, it's not clear. It's just... Seasonal and part-time, are obviously part-time are included.
You get part-time are included, but you have to work a certain amount of months before you qualify for the minimum of sick leave. So seasonal employees never, unless your definition of seasonal exceeds 90 days, which most people don't.
Well, we have some that do. I think it's a bookkeeping nightmare too, because then your employers have to track all these hours and days, and I do think it's an overreach. And today, what I see are employers who value the employee, they want to keep them, they want to depend on them, they reward them. I know I've used the example before. I have a friend who has a concrete business. He gave his employees his truck when he was going to replace it because he needed them to be able to be on the job. They were always dependable, but he wanted to do what he could to help and guarantee that they stayed with him. So they...
Construction employees are exempted under the statutes.
Just, okay.
Any other comments from the board?
Mike, do you have any comments?
We have board comments now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trustee
This
Carroll?
is board comments?
Yes.
I thought it was
Sorry.
only on the ordinance. Oh, well, then I have something else to say.
Okay, Trustee Guerra.
Okay, sorry, changing lanes. I was fortunate to be at the pool last Tuesday night. I knew there was a training session taking place with our fire department, and it was on spinal injuries in the water and rescues. And so as I stood there observing this interaction between the fire district and our lifeguards, and I was so impressed. A gentleman, Mr. Sean Kidd, I believe was his name, from Stargard in Windermere, Florida, came over and started talking to me that he had done an unannounced audit that day. So it was a double whammy for the guards. They were all there. He came at 8 o'clock in the morning, and because there had been rain, he had to suspend his audit and then continue. So this was well after 8 o'clock. And he was explaining to me how difficult it is to get a 5-star rating, because it's not only evaluating the guard's performance, but it's evaluating the facility and the equipment that's there and the condition and the maintenance and the front office staff and the people that are out in front. And he said, you know, I came here and I have no way to not give them a 5-star rating. This pool, and I was really amazed and called him out and made him repeat it a second time. He set the protocol down at Disney World in their pools. He said, this pool is much more like Disney than any place I've been. So our guards, of course, are thrilled, and their record speaks for itself. I think it's 27 out of 28 last inspections were all 5 stars. We were the #1 pool in the Chicago region last year for safety, cleanliness, everything. And I just, I wrote a little note too, that I am just so incredibly proud that we have these people from the front office to the building maintenance and facilities, everybody, and most especially the guards and Brittany who runs the place. They're just amazing. And he said, how you motivate these people, I don't know, but if you can bottle it, I'll sell it for you. Because these kids, they support one another. They're so enthusiastic. We're just very fortunate to have them. So I just want to make that pitch for our pool, and we've got a really great thing going over there, and they're terrific.
Trustee Carroll?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things, Ms. Hayes, I want to let you know that I will talk to the Public Works Department about this calorie pears, I think you called it, see if we can get them off our list of approved trees for future plantings. Also, I want to announce, we've already done a great job of getting the word out there, but this coming Saturday, we have the first e-waste, or electronic waste recycling program in probably 5 years. It's going to be at the Public Works facility from 9 a.m. to, I believe it's 3 p.m. It's for residents only. All electronics for disposal are free except for TVs and computer monitors. We are working in conjunction with a group called Vet Tech USA. It's a great not-for-profit that helps train veterans on computer repairs, computer building, computer skills. They also do some home placements for veterans that are without homes. It's a really great organization. So the proceeds of the recycling will go to them. They're also providing the personnel to do most of the work. I will need some volunteers that day. Hint, hint to my fellow board members. But basically, the vast majority of the work will be done by Vet Tech USA, and we do have some staff members from Public Works that'll be helping them. Again, it starts at 9 in the morning at our Public Works facility. So anyone that's not going to be attending that, I would recommend you stay off Ravinia south of 157th, because it's going to be one-way only for the entire time, and potentially could even be shut down if we get as busy as we're anticipating. If you do have a TV or a computer monitor that you do want to recycle, you can do so. I would recommend you go to our village website that has a link to Vet Tech's website, where you can make your payment. It's $25 up to a 40-inch and $45 for anything above that, I believe are the numbers. If you make that payment on Vet Tech's website, you can print out the receipt or have it on your electronic device, because we'll be checking those down at Public Works at the event. If you haven't paid in advance, you can pay there, but we're trying to facilitate a quick flow through. It's going to be a lot of cars that we anticipate. So again, it's this coming Saturday. Any more information, you can go to the village website or our village Facebook page. Thank you.
Mike, if you make that payment, isn't it good for?
Yes. Yeah, by statute, electronics recyclers can't charge for electronics. The difficulty is that the places they take them to charge. So the legislature allowed for a charge as long as there's an in-kind benefit given. So Vet Tech USA, if you have to pay that $25 or $45, they'll give you a coupon in the same amount for one of their rebuilt or refurbished computers that the veterans have put together. So you'll get some benefit in exchange for your donation.
Trustee Ruzick?
Just a reminder to all our residents that vehicle stickers are due to be purchased and placed on the cars by the 30th of this month. You can still buy them online, which would be our preference. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Calendro?
No comments. Sorry.
Trustee Penton?
I just want to remind everybody that the market in the park is every Thursday from 4 to 8. We've resolved a couple parking issues that were down there, so we're very excited. And just remember, you can always park in the parking garage, too.
Thank you. Regarding the calorie pear issue, I'm a certified arborist, as you may know, and that is an issue that's been being watched for a while. And I've always, even when it wasn't being watched as an invasive, it's a horrible parkway tree and should come off of our parkway list. It's very weak branched in our trucks.
Might be off already, but I'll double check.
Right. Yeah. Also, just want to give a shout out to the police who did a cookout with the cops today, and I was over there until the storm came and everyone had to clear out. But they ripped through a whole bunch of hot dogs, and kids were lined up and enjoying running the sirens and lights, so they were enjoying that. Also regarding Market in the Park, We also have resolved the issue regarding alcohol sales in the park. The issue was that the state wanted to get their slice of the pie every week. We've managed to, through actually hard work of Jennifer, who's new, making some phone calls and getting them to agree to make the 15 consecutive days be 15 consecutive weeks if it's on the same day. So that solves the problem, and now we're in the process of trying to expedite that because I think that will bring more food trucks to the market on the park, which should make it even more successful. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
No, go in executive session.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, motion to go in executive session for A, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific village employees. B, purchase or lease of real property for the use of the village. C, setting a price for sale or lease of village property.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Put the motion to a vote. Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.